Christmas feels like it was a long time ago now. It's February as I record this, but it was Christmas that I decided to try and spend some more time learning Ableton. And one of the ways that I thought I'd do that would be to replicate the Comeback Kid by The Midnight. I'll get more into the how and why I did this later, but first let's have a listen to what I ended up with.
I've been so low, felt the wind blow like I was a screen door in a thunderstorm. Yeah, I've been down, you've been laid out, but you always were what I came here for. Waiting all day, just for my sake, for a bell to ring, for the first sting. Yeah, I've been blue, that ain't nothing new to you, my friend. Why get up again? I've made mistakes and I've been hard hit. I say so what? So what if I did? I'm the clear-eyed, I'm the comeback kid. It's been a rough year, been some tough tears. I've lost so fast all that I had, but when it's time to, I'll fight for you, 'cause you know you are why I've come so far. I've made mistakes and I've been hard hit. I say so what? So what if I did? I'm the clear-eyed, I'm the comeback kid. Start it over again.
In parts, it sounds fairly familiar. In others, not. Most notably the bell sound and the guitar solo. So, what did I use to do this? Well, primarily I used this, which is a course by the Midnight on making synthwave. They used this track, The Comeback Kid, to illustrate how they did it. This course is on Sonic Academy. I have no affiliation with Sonic Academy, and this is a paid for course. However, you can watch the first video, which is essentially a playthrough of the track, and the second video, which is all about creating the kick sound that they use, the kick drum. It's a great tutorial. I think it was well worth it. There were a few reviews on there that I didn't think were very fair. They were a bit harsh. People saying the Midnights obviously kept the secret sauce to themselves. I don't think that's true. You know, you've got to use a little bit of your own imagination, ears, effort, especially if you don't have all of these plugins. You're going to have to do something that sounds as near to as possible as you can get. And that's what I've had to do. I've only got a couple of these plugins. I've got Diva, and I've got the Isotope mastering plugin, Isotope Ozone. I'm not sure if that's on that list. When I first bought the course, I watched the videos several times, I think, and I felt I'd learned quite a lot just watching those. But I thought, let's take this to the next logical progression, and I'll try and recreate the track from fresh. And you'll see, in addition to all the videos, there's 21 of them in total. In addition to all those, it includes the project files. I was quite surprised at what it did include. It actually includes the Logic project files, in addition to lots of samples. So there's a lot there. Obviously, I'm using Ableton Live. The Logic project files are no use to me, but surprised that they're actually there. If we look at some of the samples, you see you get the kick sample. That's fairly untreated. If you watch the first video, you'll see what he does to make that sound a lot better than it does there. Yeah, you get the yeah sounds that you hear in the track. Yeah! Lots of nice reverb. You get Tyler's lead. That's an unprocessed, dry a cappella version of it.
I've been so low, felt the wind blow.
There we go. So there's a lot in there that's very useful. I also noticed in amongst the resource files that there are some, essentially the stems of the track, but on a track by track basis. We've got like the outro synth. I'll move to the end of that. Now, I've not used those. I've tried to recreate those using VSTs. I think you could use those, I suppose, if you wanted. I'd have certainly got a better bell sound, that's for sure. I think that's in there. Oh yeah, that's the real one. You see, you would end up with something better, but yeah, you're just doing a remix then, really, aren't you? You're not reproducing the track. Okay. Let's have a look at this on a track-by-track basis. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail here because my point of this is to effectively demonstrate how good I think the tutorial is and not to replicate it and negate the reason for you to go and buy it. I think you should go and buy the tutorial, and so I'm not going to go into masses of detail. However, the kick drum, the tutorial for that is free, and therefore I'll go into a bit more detail on the kick sound, and I will disable all the effects on that. Okay, so it's this one here. Now that's the kick sample that comes with the resource files for the project. The Midnight uses kick 2 to alter this, I'm just using the built-in drum rack in Ableton. And you'll notice that the sample has this empty space before it. So what the Midnight does, what Tim does, is he just removes that empty space at the start. That's a nice kick sound. The next thing is we put some EQ on. I'm using Tokyo Dawn Labs Nova, which the Midnight also use. And this is a free plugin, and I only found out about it from the tutorial video, and it's excellent. It's really, really good. So there's quite a bit of EQing going on there, and you'll notice through the tutorial. There we go. You'll notice when you watch the tutorial, there's a lot of EQing goes on, an awful lot. Okay, now the next couple, I'm trying to replicate something that really makes the kick come alive, I think. And those were two effects that are put on the kick drum. One is SPL Vitalizer, and the other one, the one that I think makes the biggest difference of all, is the Yuhi satin tape distortion emulation. It just adds so much warmth and presence to the sound. It's great. I've not got that, so I've tried to do what I can in Ableton. So let's just listen. And that's basically these two, the hot driven tape and the bit warmer, which is, I think, is some kind of tube emulation. So this is before. I'll turn these two on. It's quite subtle. I couldn't seem to get the effect that Yuhi Satin does, and I spent quite a while trying to, but there we go. That's what I've got. Then some more EQ. Oh, that's another Tokyo Dawn Labs one. That's the Slick EQ. And then at the end, just a little bit of reverb. And I'm using a free reverb, which is the Tal reverb. So in the end, we end up with this. Next up, we've got the snare drums. I'm not going to go into the same level of detail with these, but we've got two snare samples, both of which come from the resource file of the project. And I've got them on a return channel, just giving them a little bit of reverb. There's also lots of other processing, EQing goes on. I've just used Ableton effects for that, but this is what the snares end up like. I won't go into detail on all the other drum parts, but most of the samples that have been used in this have come directly from the resource files that you get with the project from Sonic Academy. Ableton's got no concept of buses, but it does have groups. So I've grouped all the drums together there. So let's just have a quick listen to what the final drum sound is like. The next track we've got is the main synth. I've just unfrozen this track. I normally keep it frozen because it uses Yuhi Diva synth. It's quite an apt name for it because it's incredibly CPU heavy. And if you've got a few Diva synths in your project, you're probably going to have to freeze one or two of those to carry on working, otherwise it'll start stuttering. The main synth is instantly recognizable. Let's just have a quick listen to that. And we're already running out of CPU. Okay, so that's very accurate, and there's a reason for that. The Midnight produced a Diva soundbank, and these presets are available from the patch bay. So I bought these sounds, and that's what I've used. That's one of the main reasons the track sounds as accurate as it does. So I recommend you get that. They're great sounds anyway. Well worth £7.49, well worth it. It's worth going onto the patch bay anyway. They've got lots of good things on there, and there's a guy called Brad Ritz who does some crazy videos wandering around in a forest and finding some old vintage synthesizers like a Fairlight. Very, very good videos. Okay, so I've just put another Diva synth on here. You can see these are some of the sounds. So the Comeback Kid, I'll just try and play it. You'll have to excuse my playing. I normally go through an ASIO sound driver, but to make this video I've got to go through DirectX, and there's loads of delay on it. Really nice sounds in there, and you see by some of the names, you can see what tracks they've come off. Incidentally, this one, Kids, I'm sure this soundbank came out long before the Kids album, so makes you wonder, maybe there's some clues in here as to future tracks. You never know. Okay, onto the bass track. I don't have any of the sounds that the Midnight use for the bass track, so I found my own and tried to make it sound similar. I'm using two bass sounds on here. One is a DX7, Yamaha DX7 kind of sound, which I've used a free plugin called Dext, and the other one is a Yuhi synth that's free, and that's called Tyrell N6. So let's just have a little listen to the bass sound. Next up, we've got this dreamy synth. Let's have a listen to that. That's lovely. Really nice reverb on that. Again, I think I used a Diva synth for that, and I used one of the Midnight's sounds. Then we're onto the bell sound. I tried for quite a while to find a nice FM synth style bell sound. FM synths are known for basses and bell sounds, I always think. I couldn't find a bell sound that was right. I spent quite a while. I tried building my own in Dext, and I just gave up in the end. I ended up using this. It's actually a Diva synth, and it's one of the Midnight samples from the Patch Bay preset. It's not right. I could spend more time on it, but it's okay for now. The guitar lead is something that doesn't sound right on mine. I don't have the instruments that the Midnight used, nor the presets. I've therefore used free synths and the effects that came with Ableton to try and get something that was approximating it. In addition, I didn't realize until quite late on that there are MIDI files in the project that you download from Sonic Academy as well. I didn't see them at the time and I didn't use them, but in hindsight I think that was correct. If you start using the MIDI files and that come with the project, you're not really trying to build it yourself. So anyway, I did this the hard way, and that was by going onto YouTube instead of like Spotify or Tidal or whatever you use to listen to your music. Going onto YouTube because you can slow things down, and I spent quite some time listening to the guitar solo on quarter speed and half speed and trying to work out what on earth was going on, and then spent quite a while learning how to play that best I could. So then I played that and then tidied it up a bit, especially all the pitch bends. They were all a bit off. Anyway, let's solo that and see what I ended up with. It's not right, but it's, yeah, you just about get away with it. The next track that we've got is Tyler's vocal, and that is a dry, unprocessed a cappella vocal. After that, we've got the yeah sounds. Let's just listen to those to remind you. And then if we unsolo, so it's been a very interesting exercise to do this. I think what you learn is whilst there's quite a lot going on each track, certainly in terms of EQ and processing, they aren't massively complicated, and everything that is going on in terms of EQ and processing, it all makes sense. Similar to a piece of art you might hang on a wall or any other great piece of music, the component parts they're not overly complex, but the end result is much greater than the sum of its components. Recreating it on a track by track basis is one thing, but coming up with each of those tracks to start with and realizing that if you piece all those components together, you end up with this end result. That's the hard bit. So that's a very brief rundown of my attempt at recreating the Comeback Kid in Ableton. If you want to do something similar, I really recommend that you go and get the tutorial from Sonic Academy. Even if you don't want to recreate this track, I'd recommend that you just watch it for all the tips that you pick up. It's really in depth. Every EQ change, every effect that is on that track is mentioned in that video. I've just skimmed through. And also the soundbank on Patch Bay. That's the thing that's enabled this to sound as near as it is. So hopefully I'll do something like this again. Maybe need to wait until Christmas next year, and maybe even get something of my own finished, because what I tend to do is just get partway through it and then ditch it. So I'll try and do something of my own in the meantime as well.